Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Mignot, CEO of the experience agency D-Flash. Each episode, I bring in a different business leader who's doing some game-changing work, and this episode is no different. I'm super excited to have Kay Hsu, who's the global director of the Instagram Creative Shop. It's going to be a fantastic conversation because I love all things Instagram, and we're going to talk about her career, how she got there, and some interesting things she's working on. It's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Kay.
Hi, how are you?
I know, hanging out in the tin can and lockdown. It's all good.
Guess what? Me too.
Really? No way. It's a fun place to be. My apartment for the 7,000th day. What day is it? I don't even know. But even though we're in this unique and unusual set of times, the podcast doesn't change. The first question always remains the same. So, Kay, what was your first job?
Okay, my very first job, I was in 6th grade. I don't even know if it was kosher, but I did grow up in Toronto, and I had a job at what we call CNE, which is the Canadian National Exhibition. It's a really big fair that we have every summer, and it just happens once a year during the summer in, I think, the month of August. So I sold bags. I sold bags at a little, they have a little auditorium where they just have a lot of vendors with independent stuff to sell. So it wasn't just apparel or accessories, but you could buy food as well. So it was kind of like a really big fair, if you will. Mix of food, mix of bags. I definitely sold bags for 2 summers. And I was
12. Bags?
I mean, they were just bags, I think, that the owners purchased, around the world for pretty cheap and probably sold it at a markup. But there was no brand. They were leather bags. I got paid $5 an hour. Again, I was 12, but I did get paid in cash.
You were 12? Why were you doing this at 12?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I'm actually surprised. I think my parents knew a friend of a friend who was operating the stall. And I think they were just looking for people to help look and to make sure that, I guess, the bags weren't being stolen. But, there's a history of theft there. And then,
Makes sense. It's no banner.
Yeah, I mean, it was a stall that was quite large, actually. It was a sizable size, and they had bags hanging along all of the racks. And so I think they were always pretty paranoid and cautious that people would be stealing these no-name bags, these shoddily designed bags. But that's what I did. I did it with my best friend at the time, and we worked there for 2 summers in a row until we were 13. I think 14 was the year we stopped doing it because
we're done with this. Yeah. And you learned customer service and how to deal with people and negotiate and haggle, because I'm sure people were like, how much does this cost? I want for less.
Yep. I learned a little bit of that, but surprisingly, I think this is probably something that's true for the rest of my career. But the thing I learned is how to deal with bosses. So I think that was my first foray into managing up. The guy who owned the stall was a very curmudgeonly owner. He had very distinctive ideas. He was very, very strict and very rigid in the way he operated the stall. So I think that was my first, if I really think back to what I learned, certainly a little bit of the customer service. I'm terrible at haggling, so I always give in because I never want to lose a sale. But I think I learned how to manage, more difficult personnel or a different style of management.
Which always comes in super handy throughout anyone's career, because personalities are always special throughout our career.
That's a great way to put it. Special.
Well, So how do you go from selling on no-name bags in Toronto to being in New York and Instagram? What was that journey like?
Oh my God, it was a very long journey. It's a pretty convoluted journey, to be honest with you. After that, I had another really great job, part-time job, selling burgers. I worked at a burger joint, and I actually assembled the burgers for a long time. And then, I got promoted to helping them run their stall in a mall. So I got promoted pretty quickly, and I think I worked there for 2 years, I would say. But after that, my parents really got into politics. They went to a liberal fundraiser. I forgot why, but they got an invitation. They met someone who was the Governor General of Canada at the time. Her name was Agent Clarkson, and she was Canadian Chinese. And she had said to my parents, hey, you should really get your kids involved in politics because there's not enough women in politics. There's not enough like women of color in politics. So my parents got really inspired by this and they really shaped the rest of my career going forward. But essentially they came back and said like, hey, we think that you should get involved in politics, which is very unusual for Chinese parents. Get involved in politics. We found you an internship with a municipal councillor, like go learn about, local politics. So I actually volunteered for a counselor, municipal counselor for a long time. She ended up running for federal election. I helped her run the election because this is like, honestly, like 20 something years ago, when people were just learning how to use databases to, basically manual inputting of like,
all the information.
Thing, right. And then trying to forecast whether or not, forecast how much votes we would get in a particular area. She ended up winning. Long story short, I ended up in politics. She gave me a job right as I got out of university. I worked for her as a paid employee, as her legislative assistant, helped her do all her communications for a couple of years, and got out of there because I loved it. But I think when you're too young, politics may not be necessarily like healthy.
Understandable.
Yeah, healthy for your state of mind, may not be the best place to learn things, so it was really difficult. So I moved out of that, worked for my parents for a little bit. My dad ended up moving back to Hong Kong. He's originally from Hong Kong and he was retired at that point. So I took the leap and moved there with him because there just wasn't as many jobs available in Toronto at the time, which is kind of like a weirder time. Canada's a much smaller population than the United States. So not a lot of like multinational headquarters that are there. So I think the work, the employment was just, the opportunity just wasn't there. So I moved to Hong Kong, did as everybody does, opened a t-shirt shop or tried to launch a t-shirt.
I have heard this many times.
Yes. Honestly, I don't know anybody who's ever worked at an agency that has never tried owning a t-shirt shop because it just is like the easiest thing to do and it's the most creative thing to do. So I owned one with my best friend. It was called Liberation Army. So we realized, again, we were in Hong Kong. We're like, okay, we could never sell this to China because the name Liberation Army. So we changed to Daughters of Liberation. So proud of it. Didn't really go anywhere, but we had, and she really had a trim business that we ended up doing. So trading trim. So a lot of hodgepodge stuff. But in the meantime, I was really figuring out what I wanted to do. And a lot of friends in advertising, a lot of friends that were strategic planners, and they described what they did. They worked at really big agencies like McCann Erickson and Leo. I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do. I don't want to be a small business owner because it's not happening. I don't know. We don't have investment to do this. Like I want to get into advertising. And that really was the moment where all of my effort and resources went into getting into advertising. I went to do my master's in communications with a focus on advertising and PR. And then I said, I'm moving to New York. Really?
I'm done. Listen, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. And I moved to New York. I got it started in advertising, made my way there. And then one day, I applied for a job at Facebook. And I think the rest is there. But that was a long-winded way of saying, hopefully, that not every career is well planned. A lot of times, I think it was my attitude that led me to a really good place, as in like I was very open and very curious and very thirsty to learn new things. But it's really funny because I think there's always a desire to tell your career in really big chapters that make sense, but sometimes it doesn't. And mine, certainly, my career path has never been very straightforward. It's taken me all over the place. I just happened to, like, I think in this career, found what I really, really love, which is like, I still love advertising. I like trying to sell things to people, persuade people. I love planning. I love understanding things about people and what makes them tick. I like understanding culture. And all of this, again, hopefully, and thankfully, it's a skill that, Instagram values. And so that's what really got me to where I am.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's a phenomenal story. And so from selling bags to politics to a t-shirt business to Instagram. Yeah. It's a one plus two plus three plus four equals six. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody should just follow that path. And
Follow that path. Also start in Toronto, and then you'll be good to go. Like, these are the ways it works. Well, no, that's, honestly, that's really why I did this show, because I think folks oftentimes see folks, well, they have this huge, awesome job, and it was obviously predestined. It's like, well, first of all, was there an Instagram 10 years ago? No. But more importantly, you find your way. You take the opportunities. No one is an overnight success. What it takes you to get to where you may be is a matter of right place, right time, right skills, because that's what it comes down to.
Absolutely. I think what people understate is the opportunities that have been given, right? And I've certainly been very privileged because I've had lots of people, I think, mentor me and give me opportunities. So where I think women and women of color struggle is that we're not often offered opportunities, because we have to show not just potential, but that we have the skill set. I've been very lucky because a lot of people that have mentored me, given me those opportunities, gave it to me with that leap of faith. And, I was able to grow in that space. So having said that, how bumpy it was, I cannot understate how helpful it was to have these really specific people that have been so fundamental in my career development, all because it started with them being open to give me a chance to prove myself. And there's been a lot of those people in my life.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's it's what I'm helping build this course for college students as they get out of school. Like, how do I even network and connect them? Like, well, you have champions. You just have to find them. And then what they're gonna put the stick in the neck for you, you've got to do the work. And I think that's the thing, is that similarly, I've had so many really interesting opportunities because folks took a chance on me, and I showed up and I showed out. And I think that's the thing. It's like, when you get those opportunities, not to squander them, or not to assume it's going to lead you into one specific place. It might take you into other really beautiful places that you never expected. Like me working for an entrepreneur when I first got out of college, and the fashion industry would lead to me owning my own business that we create experiences for 15 years later. Yep. There's no way. There's no way. But that's what happened. And, I took a leap on a job that I would, because someone believed in what I could do. Wasn't what I had gone to college for. And, and I rocked it, and then learned what was happening in that industry, and then just rode that wave. And I think, as we look at our careers now, we're like, yeah, it's pretty damn awesome.
Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. It's all about the curiosity, taking the opportunity, finding a champion. That's really, really, I think, the keys to success.
So what are you doing these days on Instagram? What's some fun stuff happening there?
Oh my God, so many fun things. Well, I think we're right now, as a whole company, not just Instagram, but as Facebook Inc., we're all trying to shift our resources to invest in building things that are going to help, I think, people and businesses through this situation. So definitely on the consumer side, thinking about our products, how to make sure they're really stable. I think, me and you laughed a lot about, Instagram and how much time people are spending there. And, we would just want to make sure we can keep the lights on, because, the use and the volume of use has gone up quite a bit while people are sheltered in place, and they have a little bit more free time and need a little bit of escapism. They're definitely trying to keep the lights on there. I think from the business side, really looking at ways that we can support small and medium-sized businesses, and also some of our big clients as well. Some of them are really going through a lot of struggles. So finding ways that we can plug in and support them to help their business work through COVID, and also not even work, but also how we can figure out really how we can support them coming out of COVID too, because there's going to be a lot of recovery and reemergence of, a lot of businesses. But we are really, really focused on small and medium-sized businesses. We know they're just hit hard in a very different way. So yeah, a lot of efforts are focused on there, and there's a lot of pieces that go with it. But those are the two things I think the company is really focused on.
Cool. And, I think it's important, because I think, as a small business owner who's on Instagram, and the ease of use of tools is important, because, and the idea that I can do an Instagram live with a client and we can have a dialogue, even some stuff like that. I think if you had told me 6 months ago, will I do that? I'm like, no. But now I'm like, yeah, if I can get one of my clients or my partners to come and we'll do a live conversation, why wouldn't we do this? And I think, everyone's kind of like zoomed out at this point. And so when you can find more ways to sort of kind of what I call the sort of serendipitous, just fun, where it's just like, this is, this obviously we talked about Teddy Riley and Babyface and how like that was just quirky and fun, but like regular folks just having those one-on-one dialogues and like a thought pops into your mind. Because again, you're not feeling like I'm stuck in those like squares. I'm just like having a conversation and you're vibing with someone. That can lead to a lot of different fun things that can happen for a brand and make them appear much more personal and much more fun and much more in touch with what's happening right now.
Absolutely.
So you've had a really awesome career, but I'm guessing that it wasn't always easy. Can you tell me about a time that you had a really interesting challenge and how you found your way through?
Yeah, I think I've certainly had a lot of challenges. I think it's really interesting. I think we spoke a little bit about my background and being born and raised Canadian, very proud Canadian. I think it's really interesting, I think, coming to the United States and working here now for 15 years. I didn't really fully understand sort of like how I look would really determine how people interact with me, and how I look by meaning, I'm Asian, and I'm a woman. And so I've definitely found those challenges in work. I've certainly been called things that were really inappropriate in agency setting. I've been mistaken for other women. I have been, I'm sure even in the short time we've known each other, no one would ever probably characterize me as quiet, but I've definitely been called quiet. And then I kind of stuffed into a box. So that was often a challenge, because if people didn't recognize you physically, how could they recognize the value that you bring to the work? And so that was a huge challenge. It's not that I had to find my voice. I'm pretty confident my voice was there, but making sure that my voice was heard. And that has been, I think, a challenge that, that I think comes again a little bit with baggage of being Asian and dealing with the stereotypes of, being quiet or complacent or a workhorse, and not necessarily, again, there's a lot of stereotypes against Asians being leaders, especially in corporate America. So I definitely feel like there's been challenges there that I've, tried to work through, and I don't know the perfect answer because I'm still working through them. But it's interesting also coming from my orientation, where, again, I don't think I have a lot of, I don't have the same historical legacy experiences that make up a lot of the Asian American experience. I have my very unique experience, and I'm stepping into this framework and trying to work my way through it and kind of, make sure, again, like I can make my voice heard, but also I can help other women and women of color make sure that like their voices are heard. It's just a collective challenge that I feel individually, but I feel like it's a collective challenge that a lot of women are facing.
Yeah, no, it's true, because I think, people take stereotypes and assume that, oh, you must fit in this box, and I get the same thing, and it's like, well, no, first of all, wasn't born here either. A different experience, and kind of similarly, like your Asian American experience is similar to the Black American experience. Like, it's a different one for me. Like, it just is different. Not one is better or worse. It's just different, and as a result, you may view things differently. You may come at things from a different perspective, because that wasn't what you saw as a kid. That wasn't what you experienced as a teenager. And as a result, the biases or traumas that some other folks may have, you don't have, because you're like, it wasn't for me. It wasn't my experience. But it doesn't mean I don't empathize or can understand as to why this is an issue. And it's on us to sort of take that and be like, listen, there are ways we can move this forward, and also going to stand up for other folks, because I have a degree of privilege that allows me to maybe walk into different rooms than other folks can.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, definitely.
And so, like, as we're in this kind of really weird, funky time of COVID, what would you, thinking back about now, what would you tell 25-year-old Kay?
Oh my God. I think, well, someone asked me what's my quarantine song, and this is extremely out of character. It's Patience by Guns N' Roses. Wow. I would say to have patience. I will say, I had it up and down with Guns N' Roses. I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously they're classic, but I did see them once in the desert in Dubai for some random reason. So I did see them, renewed a little bit of interest, but it was really Nora Jones had covered them, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and it was such a heartfelt rendition that I'm like, wow,
Really?
Patience is, yes, I'll have to send it to you. It's such a beautiful rendition of her singing Patience.
It's Nora Jones.
Yeah, I know, Nora Jones, of all people. But I really, I think that's the thing, is patience. You know, when I was 25, I was, you know, extremely impatient to make an impact, to do big things. And, you know, I was very frustrated that it wasn't happening. But I would tell myself to have a lot more patience, and to also take a lot more risk. You know, I think I took a lot of risks in my career, but I would encourage myself to take even more risks, because there are some things that, you know, I wished I used, like that youth and energy that I no longer have, you know?
I
And
don't.
I no longer had 17 years ago. 17 years later, no energy. But 17 years before, I had a lot more energy. I kind of almost even wish that, you know, the side hustle, you know, that I wanted to have, like I really put more energy towards that, and maybe it would be more further along.
Yeah, I think patience is key, and I think, you know, especially now, you think, oh, everything's gonna be solved by the time you're 25 or the time you're 30, and you're like, or you haven't achieved enough, if you haven't done all of it, you haven't sold your story to Netflix and, like, you know, gotten a million followers on Instagram, and, you know, had Beyonce retweet you, then, you know, you're not living.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, no. Like, there is no overnight success. It takes time, and even if you see folks who are doing really well behind the scenes, they've been working for years at this. Like, there is no shortcut to success outside of you, I don't know, winning the lottery. Like, it's not going to happen. And I think that's the thing that, you know, I hope during this time of COVID, folks are seeing it, like Instagram. Are you guys 10 years old now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than,
So, like, I remember when Instagram first started, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And if you had told me that, like, 10 years later, oh, we're in the middle of a quarantine, but I can go and watch, you know, T-Pain and Lil Jon, you know, go shot for shot on music, and then have a million people watch Babyface and Teddy Riley just, like, go at it and tell stories and, you know, and make jokes, and it become the land of 1,000 memes, no one would have predicted that. You never know where things are going to go. But you got to take a step forward. You got to keep moving and not assume that it'll just be, oh my gosh, it'll be exactly the same thing. It's going to be slow. Like, no, it's
yep.
just a process.
Yeah. I mean, who would have thought Fat Joe was going to become Oprah? You know what I mean? Like,
that is wild. I am still floored by how I'm like, Joe?
yeah.
Oh, and then DJ Khaled looks like a mountain man. Like, he's just like, what's a giant beard? He's just like, it's I think, you know, someone was saying that, like, I think the reason why this all had to happen was that Mother Nature knew we all needed a break.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why, you know, we're all at home now and having this moment to sort of reflect and slow down, because we were all moving so very fast because we thought we had to get so many other places, and it turns out we kind of had to just, like, chill for a little bit. So we'll figure it out in some way, shape, or form. I hope.
Choice. You have to.
Oh yeah, well, that's the thing. We literally have no choice. So in this time of, like, hanging out and being in New York, what are you doing for self-care?
You know what? I'm sleeping and I'm giving myself a little slack, because I admit, I'm a little bit basic. I felt a little bit of pressure at first. I did think, like, oh God, I have to do something with all this extra time, which actually didn't end up being extra, but I was like, oh God, I should learn something. I should do something. And I had been at the very beginning really focused on the like senior community within the Asian community. A lot of them are displaced and aren't getting food. So I focused a lot of effort in there. And then I felt a little bit bad about not dedicating stuff to, like, learning something, again, super basic. But I've given myself, I think, permission to be kinder and to rest a little bit more. So sleep is my definite thing for self-care. Allowing myself, especially on the weekends, to sleep to whatever time I want to and not feel guilty about it has been, I think, the best way for me to recuperate after, like, all this, like, the outside stress and, you know, the inside stress and
all the dishes.
Yeah, exactly. And all the dishes and all the laundry. Sleeping is like the best thing ever. And then also, I mean, again, it's a little bit basic, but indulging in a lot of like bad TV has definitely been self-care.
Oh, as you should. I mean, this is the thing. You have to do this. You have to like just think of it as like you have permission to watch whatever trashy foolishness you want. Like I've caught up on Shots of Sunset. I've caught up on all the Housewives, and it's fine, totally fine. Like not gonna complain at all. But you also give yourself a break. I think sometimes folks are feeling like they have to get all this stuff done. That's what I'm saying. Like just chill. Like there isn't a answer to this. So all we can do is just try and be as kind to ourselves as possible during this woefully weird time. Like it's just weird. So you're good. So I'm glad you're getting some good sleep.
Yeah, definitely getting more than a good enough sleep. Sometimes my husband asks me if I moved for the whole day. He'll look at me like, "Have you even moved?" And then he'll look at my phone. 16 steps. Very interesting. I'm like, did you even go to the restroom? Like, probably not. It's probably from me moving my phone up and down, up and down.
Up and down. No, it's like funny. Like I've tried to do like little walks downtown on the weekend. So I like walked into Soho, and it was weird because it was Saturday in Soho and it was empty. And then I walked to Spring Street and I saw that Dominique Ansel was open, and I'm like, wait, I can get pastries. So there was a line, but it wasn't that bad. And then I was able to get like chocolate croissants, and I'm like, there are some good things about it being empty in Manhattan. Like I can get amazing chocolate croissants. So whatever you gotta do, just do. Be good to yourself here. Eat all the snacks, watch all the bad TV.
Order all the snacks.
Oh yes. Well, I keep looking at your background going, I want a Big Mac so bad. So as part of the podcast, we have a section of where we have a give or an ask. So, Kay, what would be your give and or ask to the audience?
My give, I think it's the same thing. I think I would give patience, patience and trust. I know this sounds like weird, but I feel like I could give you like a little beast that like people can have beside them, and patience that things will get better, because I don't think there's anywhere but up to go. And I think I would give them like faith. I think that things will turn out. I think, again, I'm in a very privileged state. I think there's certainly a lot of people who are undergoing really severe trauma. So I don't want to trivialize that. But I think the most important thing is like faith, even if it's like an organized faith or not, but having faith that, things will be as they will be. And it's not even a trite saying, but I think knowing that sometimes we can relinquish control, and then being okay with the things are, and kind of accept it, and have patience with it, I think is the biggest gift I can give to people. And it's really weird. It's a gift, but it's also an ask. It's also like to be patient, to be generous, to ask everybody to be generous with the people around you, show kindness in small ways. If it's your coworker who's struggling, your neighbor, I think that's the most important thing to bring us all through this. Because, if we don't even have a little ounce of kindness during a time where it's so stressful, we can't like deal with the bigger problems that will come with this. So I think if anything we can do to be kind to each other is probably an ask I would have for everybody else.
Awesome. That's so beautiful and so true. And wonderful. Thanks, Kay. I love that. That is a wonderful way to end the podcast. And Kay, it was such a delight to have you on the show. You just got buckets of good wisdom and experiences, and thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Laura.
This is awesome. And that is our show.